Hey guys, just a reminder, if you want to hear all of these wonderful B Plus podcast episodes completely ad-free, make sure you head over to Patreon or Podbean, where we are the featured podcast this week. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month up to $10 a month, where anything you want to help us with, it really helps out. It's going to help us grow the site. It's going to help us redesign some things, and everything that we get through this and through the advertising as well is all going straight back into the podcast so that we can get Aussie Grapps out there for the rest of the world to hear about, for the rest of the world to see, so we can grow this mission of watch global, support local, and build indie wrestling. So if you want to be a part of that and get some really cool rewards like call-in shows, bonus episodes, ad-free like I mentioned, then head over to patreon.com/theb+ and subscribe today.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Hold one. Arm drag.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
Oh my God.
Sorry, no speak English.
Dummy. Goodbye and good night. Hold two. Arm bar.
It's still real to me, damn it.
Dummy.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
Hold three. Lamas covers. Three-handle family Gradunzo.
Mamma mia!
And now, Unchained.media presents the B Plus Podcast with your host, Greg Unchained.
It's me, Austin. It was me all along, Austin. Number 4, armbar. I will never retire. I still got 200 more. I got 200 more holes to list.
Alright, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends, welcome to the B Plus Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Unchained. Today is Friday. You know what that means. It's Aussie Grapps Day, our favourite day here on the B Plus Podcast. It's the day I sit down to take a look at everything happening in the world of Australian professional wrestling. And of course, I sit down to speak to an Aussie grappler or grappler adjacent person. This week it was supposed to be Vixen again. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get it to happen. We're just having, scheduling issues. This is the kind of thing that happens when everyone has, regular jobs and also trying to train and also trying to, run podcasts or wrestling companies or, careers as wrestlers. All these sorts of things will happen. Scheduling conflicts will occur. Luckily, once again, my good friends at ACW were able to pull through again. I got in touch with one of their guys, a heavy set violence, Michael Weaver. He's a PWSA guy. He's an ACW guy. He's debuting for Iron Fist tonight. He's a regular over in APW now. So we sat down and talked shop for a little while. And that's the interview we're going to have this week. I will still do... I know that some people have sent me questions to ask Vixen and everything, and we will still line up that interview. It'll happen. It's just we're not sure when it's going to be able to work out, unfortunately, with our schedules. We're always at different times that we're available, so it's very unfortunate. But we'll get there, and your questions will be answered, dear listeners. Thank you for sending in those questions, and we will definitely get to those. And I apologize that that's not happening now, but what is happening now is Michael Weaver. So before I get to that interview, of course, we need to take a look at what's happening this week in Aussie Grapps news. Starting out, as we often do, with Aussies overseas. This weekend, Chikara, the Young Lions Cup, is taking place. It's this Sunday for us here in Australia, Saturday in the States. Chikara shows are earlier than most shows, so it works out to be about 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Australian time on the Sunday morning. The show will be streamed live on Chikaratopia, so it's like $8 US a month if you need a subscription. Chikaratopia.com is the place to go. Ricky South, Jay Sorbet, two of our guys are over there. They are taking part in this year's Young Lions Cup tournament. We should all be watching together, whether we get up early or pull an all-nighter. Either way, let's support the boys as they head overseas to conquer and bring home the Young Lions Cup. And that's not all that's happening in terms of Aussies overseas. As I sit here recording this far later than I normally would. Normally I record this early Thursday morning, but it is 10 p.m. on a Thursday night. The kids are in bed. and I'm sitting down to record this, and on mute in front of me, Mikey Nicholls has just entered the ring for a match against Kazuchika Okada. Let that sink in. Mikey Nicholls, one of the members of the Mighty Don't Kneel out of Perth. He went to WWE. His last show in WWE, he was, doing a job in 5 minutes on a pre-show, and now here he is, just a few short months later, in the ring with Kazuchika Okada as part of the New Japan Cup. Holy crap, what a trajectory. I'm so keen for this match. I'm actually going to pause recording and come back to the recording after the match finishes. While they're making their entrances, though, let's continue with Aussies overseas. Jonah Rock, Elliot Sexton, they've started at the NXT Performance Center. Obviously, we talked about this previously. There was a photo that is making the rounds today of, it's all of the Aussies pretty much that are in NXT. So Shane Thorne, Elliot Sexton, Jonah Rock, Rhea Ripley, Daniel Vidot, and Hartley Jackson, the trainer. So it's really good. I mean, they would be an amazing stable. I've predicted it before that they're going to make a kind of a revamped Mighty with everyone in it. I'm hoping it happens because those guys could take NXT by storm. They could take NXT UK by storm. It'd be amazing to see. And I'm really pulling for that to be a stable. It'd be really cool to see Jag as like a manager. That'd be an interesting role for him. I don't know. I'm curious to see how it goes and if they actually become a stable, or if it's just, let's get all the Aussies together for a photo op, which it could very well be. Let's just get all the Aussies together for a photo op. But Jonah Rock repping the Punch Drunk Istria shirt in the photo shoot. Amazing stuff. And, we wish them all the best, obviously. Everything they do over there just brings more eyes to Aussie Grapps over here. So it's amazing that they're over there doing their thing. Looking a little closer to home, obviously, last weekend was the World Series Wrestling International Assault Defend and Destroy Tour. I really wish these tours would have shorter names. It has 3 names, right? World Series Wrestling, International Assault, Defend and Destroy. We can probably lose the International and Assault part at this point. Defend and Destroy. That tour took place last weekend. Robbie Eagles and Villain Enterprises both make it through the entire tour, 5 nights of wrestling, completely unscathed, still holding their championships above their head. Robbie Eagles, the World Series Wrestling World Champion, of course. And Villain Enterprises, that is Marty Scurll and Brody King, are the tag team champions. They didn't have as many defenses as they were supposed to, simply because Brody King did break his hand at one point in the tour. So, obviously, we wish him a speedy recovery. And the other major news coming out of the World Series Wrestling Tour, Jordan Grace is the first ever World Series Wrestling Women's Champion. These were really good shows. It looked, just from images and videos and stuff, like attendance may have been down compared to the last tour. I'm speculating here. I don't know the numbers, obviously. In Sydney, it makes sense since, the action's been spread across 2 nights, whereas traditionally it was 1 night in Penrith, and this time it was 2 nights, 1 in Hurstville, 1 in Penrith. Adelaide's was in a smaller venue, so I was there and I can vouch that definitely compared to the last one I went to at Dom Polsky, the crowd was a little smaller, but the venue is smaller, so that makes sense. In Melbourne, though, it may just be people getting burnt out on World Series Wrestling, because, Danders, of course, our Melbourne representative, who, she had no interest in going to World Series Wrestling, and she's not the only one. I've spoken to a few people in Melbourne who were just like, the card didn't appeal to me. I've seen a lot of these guys before, which I don't understand that criticism personally. I think that, the stories that they tell you, you want to go back and see them, but, I guess not everyone thinks like me. Everyone thinks differently, and that's fine. And so I feel like maybe some people in Melbourne are a little burnt out on World Series Wrestling. Let me know what you think. If you think that's the case, if you think that, you didn't go because you were burnt out, or, just there was no interest in the card, or there were better things to do. I want to know what happened, because it definitely looks like, and again, this is pure speculation based on images and what have you, but it looked like the crowds were down. This could be a message to World Series Wrestling to change things up. Whether that's the roster, bring out some more fresh faces, maybe lose some of the regulars that have been there since the beginning. I know that can be hard sometimes for a company to do, but, maybe it's time we do have a World Series Wrestling Tour without Austin Aries. Maybe it's time we do have a World Series Wrestling Tour without Brian Cage. I'd like to see Brian Cage come back. I'm a huge fan. I like seeing Austin Aries too, to be honest with you. I don't know, maybe Flip Gordon doesn't come back. Maybe you put in some fresher names. I've said it before, I want Marco Stunt. Right, I would love to see Marco Stunt. Jonathan Gresham is another one. Jamie Apps said that one on our World Series Wrestling review podcast, which you can go back and listen to in the archives. I agree with him completely on that. David Arquette and RJ City. RJ City is like my favorite independent wrestler at the moment. His stuff is so fucking funny. Do the moves, bro. Do the moves. Just do the moves. I would love to see RJ City come out here to do some moves. Who else would be good for World Series Wrestling? Let us know who you would like to see booked on future World Series Wrestling tours. But that's one way they could change things up. It could just be a matter of changing up the cities. Maybe just do one night in Melbourne. Maybe try a different venue. I really like the PCW venue from what I've seen, though. But, one night in Melbourne and then, a night in Adelaide, a night in Perth, a night in Queensland. Maybe it's time to try to look at that and try to change things up in that way because, 2 nights in Melbourne every 3 months. Maybe there's a little bit of burnout. And if you're going to start doing 2 nights in Sydney too, I imagine you're going to get a similar effect. So I'm interested to see how World Series Wrestling adapts to the changing landscape. But, also last weekend, World Series Wrestling wasn't the only thing happening last weekend. Over in Perth, Southern Hemisphere Wrestling Alliance, SHWA, the Pulse are no more. Big news coming out of SHWA. The Pulse are no more. I talked about it briefly, it was last week or the week before. Team Warship were facing off against the Pulse, and if Warship's team were able to come out victorious, the Pulse would need to disband. However, if Warship's team lost, Warship had agreed to retire. They won, and the Pulse is officially no more. The Pulse had been running roughshod over SHWA for the better part of a year, maybe longer. You can listen to my interview with them if you go way back in the archives. It would have been like last August or so. We were a baby podcast. They were our 2nd or 3rd interview, I think. It was Robbie Eagles, then it was Mark Williamson, then it was Felix Young and the Pulse. And Felix Young, of course, one of the most underrated guys over there in Perth. Definitely one to be keeping an eye on. But that's not all that we had on that SHWA show. I'm really looking forward to this show going on SHWA Rewind. We had 2 titles change hand. The Pride Championship, Delcano wrestling that title away from Cheetor in a fatal 4-way. And of course, Jeremiah Kingsley, the huge upset victory over the heavyweight champ Craven. 39 seconds is all it took. Quick roll-up victory off a distraction, and there is a new SHWA heavyweight champion. I cannot wait to see it. It's shocking. Shocking. Nobody expected Jeremiah Kingsley to win. Craven hadn't had the belt for that long. Jeremiah Kingsley, it just didn't seem like he was going to be the guy to take the title off Craven, but he was. And in 39 seconds, no less. Absolutely amazing. Like I said, looking forward to seeing that one. SHWA Rewind is the place to go to get that one. I think it's $5 a month. I should really write down the prices for these things, but, then it just depresses me because I look at my bill at the end of the month. It's better just to let them debit from the card and not think about it. But SHWA Rewind is well worth the money. I enjoy all the shows that SHWA do. They're one of my favorite companies in the country. I like their storytelling. They remind me a little bit of Chikara, not as much as PWA remind me of Chikara, but, also different to PWA because PWA are 18 plus now. Anyway, it's pointless comparing. SHWA is fun. This show looks fun. Get around it on SHWA Rewind when you get the chance. While we're talking about Perth, though, also want to touch on some EPW news. This one's a head-scratcher. Taylor King, the 1-2-3 King, one of the game changers from that we talked about with Loverboy Lockie Hendricks, of course. Taylor King has been suspended in EPW. Now, I know he has his big MCW debut this weekend, and being a game changer is probably going to help it there. But the 1-2-3 King, the child star, he appears to be in hot water over there in Perth now. I talked previously about his match being left off the EPW School Showcase Back to School show on the Vimeo release, and how I was unsure why that may be. EPW released a statement this week that after thorough investigations, this is a quote here, so this is a direct quote, after thorough investigation following an incident at EPW School Showcase No. 1, EPW have informed Taylor King that he is indefinitely suspended. The statement goes on to say EPW will not tolerate any of their athletes attacking their fans, and have taken this heavy disciplinary measure in consideration of the broken collarbone sustained by the fans. So I have no idea what is going on here. Is this an angle? Was there a fan in the front row that, is actually one of the trainees and, Taylor King attacked him? Is this a shoot? Like, did a suicide dive spot go wrong and a fan got hurt? They left it off the Vimeo release, so it feels like that's a shoot. Like, they left it off the Vimeo release for a reason. There could be legal issues, I guess, if there was an attack of a fan, or maybe that's just what they want me to think. Am I being worked? I love this stuff. I love it when I can't figure it out. And I have no idea what's going on here, but I'm following it closely. I've asked, and I get completely fabed. It's one of those things that I love. I love it. I love it when people fabe me. Don't get me wrong. So I've no idea what's going on here. I'm following it closely. I'll definitely keep you updated. Meanwhile, Iron Fist Pro here in Adelaide, a little bit closer to home. Iron Fist Pro had to move venues. They are no longer going to be at the Estonian Hall. Unfortunately, the venue double booked. A bit of a theme with Iron Fist. The Rascals, of course, were supposed to be coming out, but they also double booked and had to pull out at the last minute. So this second show for Iron Fist is testing. It's that sophomore slump. Bands talk about it. You have a hit opening record, and then you got that sophomore slump you got to deal with. It's still looking like a fantastic card. It still has some of the best talent in Australia, and I hope everyone in Adelaide gets out to see this show because Iron Fist Pro have the right ideas, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this card shakes out. But back to last weekend, though, up in Queensland, there was an incident after last weekend's new Valhalla show with a bunch of equipment being stolen from the promoter's car. So they have set up a GoFundMe account to try and help recover some of the stolen goods. A lot of the things that were stolen are pretty essential to running shows, cameras, light controllers, to help the lighting and stuff for entrances. Some pretty expensive stuff, and if you're able to spare a few dollars, if you're able to help them out, obviously every dollar is going to help. They want to try to recover this stuff so that they can keep running the awesome shows that they've been running. The GoFundMe's only been up for a couple hours, and it's made $90 so far. So hopefully people will continue to donate to that. I will put a link in the show notes, of course. If you can spare a few dollars, definitely if you can spare a few dollars, definitely throw it their way to try to help them replace some of those stolen items, because it's, tragedy has struck. It's never fun when, that's the things that they use to help produce the show. So it's very important stuff. Over in New Zealand, coming up this weekend, Southern Pro Wrestling New Zealand Queenstown WrestleFest features a big matchup between Kane, and hooligan Marcus Kool. So, of course, I like to talk about things that you should be watching, and this is something to watch. They've released some videos here highlighting this match. It's career versus title. I don't know what to expect in the match. It's the question here is, Marcus can't be retiring, right? Unless he's hurt, which, of course, we hope he isn't. There's no reason for him to be retiring. He's just hitting his prime, as far as I can see. He's doing so well. So I feel like Marcus has to win, but at the same time, Kane Khan's a fresh champion, relatively new, won the title back in October. I believe this is his second title defense. It's his first program as champion after dethroning Will Power. His first program has been against Marcus Kool, and this is their second matchup. So I just don't see it as time for Kane Khan to lose yet, but this one's going to be in Marcus Kool's hometown in Queenstown. I'll be watching this one closely, and the video that they released to hype it up, the two videos, there was one with Kane Khan speaking about it and one with Marcus Kool talking about it, both well worth a watch. I will put a link in the show notes. Also worth a watch this week, Managed at First Sight. Jimmy C, you would have heard about Jimmy C. He's been in my things to watch section a few times now. This time around, he's doing a takeoff of Married at First Sight. So last time it was a video resume. He was trying to get hired back by Riot City Wrestling, trying to get let into the venue for the HQ venue for their last show. But this time around, he's doing a takeoff of Married at First Sight. It's called Managed at First Sight. It's hilarious. First episode is out now. He's doing this experiment to find the perfect client, but he's scared that if the experts don't match him with the right client, it's going to be his last chance, and he'll never get back to Riot City. He's very emotional. Obviously, he's hell-bent on getting back to Riot City, and he needs to find some clients. So this Managed at First Sight may be his last shot. So it's definitely worth a subscribe. Head to the Riot City Wrestling Facebook. I will drop a link for the video, a direct link in the show notes. Also, lots of video stuff this week. So lots of hype stuff. Loverboy Farewell tour has continued. Daniel Geller introduced Travis Houston as the head of merchandising for the Loverboy Lockie Hendricks brand. Official Farewell Tour merch is coming soon because it is best for business. Loverboy doesn't think we deserve the merch, but Uncle Paul has told him he needs to get merch out there. So it's a pretty funny video. It probably wasn't the best in the series, but maybe I'm biased because he called me a Momo and had a go at me for calling my podcast a B+ podcast. We are proud to be B+. I stand by that. Maddie Wahlberg 21st century success story. I didn't talk about this last week because I'm a goddamn idiot. And I feel horrible that I didn't talk about this because Matty Wahlberg is hands down, without a doubt, my favorite thing happening in Australian professional wrestling at the moment. I'm rooting for him to take that title from UGG, even though he's the bad guy. I feel like this is a face turn. I really do. I feel like this is an organic face turn. If you watch these videos, man, 2 episodes have come out so far. It's a good thing that I'm recording this so late, where normally I would record it in the morning, because I got the chance to watch the second episode, which dropped tonight, last night as you're listening to this. It's amazing. The first episode, like, the best thing about it to me is everyone's going cinematic with their stuff, right? Like, I talked to Michael Weaver about it. He has that really cool video of him with the Guess Who board, and it's really cinematic. And even Matty Wahlberg, his last promo against Jimmy Havoc was really cinematic. The Ricky South stuff, cinematic. The OTT stuff, the PWA stuff, everyone's going cinematic. And everyone's going for these sort of faux reality shows with, you know, similar to Elliot Sexton's Trophy Life, Mick Moretti's Dream Scheme, Loverboy Lockie Hendricks' Farewell Tour, Managed at First Sight. All of these things are sort of faux reality, whereas this one feels more like one of those UFC documentaries where they follow the guy to training, they follow him to his warm-up fights. It feels like a real thing. It feels like a WWE Chronicle, right? Where they're in the car going from city to city, ride along. But it's... So the first episode was he was at training, and you see he's got Lucci with him training, he's got Ricky South with him training, steel sharpens steel, they want to be the best, and he's talking about how he works harder than anyone, and it's just, it feels real. You know they're still building an angle, you know that this is an angle, but it feels real. Matty Wahlberg has an authenticity about him that it just can't be faked. It's something that money cannot buy, that you cannot practice. You can't practice being authentic. You either are or you aren't. And my gods, does Matty Wahlberg have authenticity in spades. It oozes through the screen. The second video came out today, and it's him going to Newcastle Pro Wrestling. He has a match against Robbie Eagles, and, you know, he gets real emotional after the match, and he's like, this is the time when, you know, when the emotions hit you. And he's telling Robbie, like, you know, I respect you. We don't like each other, but I respect you. And I do this for you. I do this to make you proud. I do this because I want to be the best. And like, I'd be mean, and I'd be an asshole, and I'd be rude because that's how I pump myself up, because I need to make you the enemy. I need to make you the enemy so that I have to push to be better than you. Because if we're friends, I get like, it's don't fuck all what I just said. Go watch him say it. Right? Matty Wahlberg, just the sheer braggadocio that this guy has when he comes out, when he cuts his promos, when he's, you know, making fun of Rose at the death. Just the braggadocio that I'm the best, I'm the greatest, you know, I'm the 21st century success story. It's amazing that he can actually pull out the emotion underneath that and acknowledge it. And it's really humanizing. And this series is the greatest thing happening in Australian professional wrestling right now, bar none. Matty Wahlberg should be champion. Matty Wahlberg should be everywhere. If you are a booker not booking Matty Wahlberg, you're an idiot. This guy is money. Just straight up money. And I'm not just saying that because of the theme song, although the theme song is an absolute banger. So, all round, Matty Wahlberg, this video, it's incredible. You need to watch it. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, of course. And another thing I forgot to talk about last week was Riot City Wrestling. Reanimated 19, Reanimated 14, Reanimated 2019. I'm not sure. I think it's Reanimated 2019. Riot City Wrestling Reanimated 2019, the first show back of the year, has been uploaded to YouTube in full. I will put the link to the playlist in the show notes. You definitely need to get around this. Unfortunately, what I considered to be the best part of the show, I mean, obviously the matches are great, but what I considered to be the best part of the show, the Parea's amazing entrance, was not uploaded. And of course, it's a matter of copyright issues with the theme songs and everything. I get that. But, you know, put it up as a separate video, guys, and don't monetize it. Like, monetize the match, do the thing that you got to do, but put up the entrance video, man, and just have it not monetized, because that entrance was epic. It was the greatest wrestling entrance I've seen live, and I was there for The Undertaker. This, okay, like, I mean, look, I was in the nosebleeds for The Undertaker, so who knows? But this Pereira entrance was amazing. It was so awesome. The production values at that venue are insane, through the roof. Definitely worth checking out. The whole show is good, obviously. Matches to check out: Zach Sabbath and Chris Basso, the tag team main event between the Armstrongs and the Pereira, both instant classics, well worth watching. Watch the entire show, of course. I will put the link in the show notes for the whole playlist. But that does it for the things to watch this week and sort of the top stories. If I missed anything, I apologize. I am just one man, but as you see things throughout the week, definitely shoot me messages. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Facebook, all that stuff. I'm happy to accept you as a friend. I'm not Danders. Even if we aren't friends, I will accept a friend request. So, shoot me a message if you see anything that you think I should be talking about, and I will, I'll definitely take it into consideration. But for now, let's go and have a chat with Michael Weaver, Heavyset Violence, about, his career in professional wrestling, about what he's got coming up, and then I will hit you after the interview with what's happening this weekend near you.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey everyone, just want to take a second to tell you about one of our new sponsors, Outbreak Nutrition. Outbreak Nutrition are creating supplements for survival, sharper minds, quicker reflexes, all the energy you need to take your performance to the next level, whether that be on the field, in the gym, on the gaming field. That's right, they have specifically designed gaming supplements as well to help you focus on those late night sessions. They even sell coffee, you guys, at Outbreak Nutrition. You can get coffee pods, you can get coffee beans, you can get supplements for the bedroom as well if you want to enhance your performance there. These are performance enhancing supplements for every aspect of your life, specifically designed by gamers, for gamers, to stay fit and healthy in the gym, to stay sharp and focused on the game, and to dominate in all areas of life. So check out outbreaknutrition.com, and for being a listener of our podcast, they will give you 10% off your order when you enter the code B+. That is BPLUS at checkout. So make sure, if you want to stay on top of your game, if you want to take your performance to the next level, outbreaknutrition.com, enter the code B+ at checkout. Alright guys, just before we get started, I want to take a second to tell you about a game I've been playing on my iPhone. You can get it on iPhone, you can get it on Android, all the tablets and what have you. It is called the Muscle Hustle app. They are good friends of the show, and they were hooking us up with codes to sort of help you guys get ahead if you were to decide to play the game. But unfortunately, in the latest software updates with iTunes and what have you, the codes aren't working. So we're trying to get that fixed. But in the meantime, if you click the link in the show notes and download the Muscle Hustle, it's a fantastic game. It's you collect wrestlers and train your wrestlers up, all with unique individual gear and everything to raise them through the ranks from jobber to superstar to legend. You go around collecting the titles, and you can even play with your friends. So unfortunately, no leg up to offer you, but if you hit the link in the show notes, it will let them know that we sent you, and it'll help us out, it helps them out, and it helps you out because it's a really fun game to play. So check out the Muscle Hustle app on iOS, Android, and all your mobile devices. The link, of course, is in the show notes. Alright, joining me at this time by the magic of the internet after some technical issues. I feel like I say that almost every week. And joining me last minute too. Thank you so much for joining me last minute. Heavyset Violence, Michael Weaver. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, I know you got some big things coming up. So when other interviews fell through, you were the first person on the list to call. So let's get into that. Before we get to the big things coming up, let's start at the beginning, because yours is a story that's not necessarily out there. And I hear you have somewhat of an interesting start to getting into professional wrestling.
Yeah, definitely not the typical kind of found a wrestling school, became a wrestler. That's not my story. I actually met, you may know him, Joel Bateman. He was working at a servo here in Adelaide, and we got chatting. We talked about wrestling, and then he started a promotion here called PWI, Pro Wrestling Ignition. We actually, fun story, Brooksy had his second ever match for us. So
wow.
It was so there's some fun times, and a lot of guys came through from Melbourne and stuff, wet their feet there. But yeah, so I got into to wrestling through just doing ring crew, and then helping promote, and all that kind of the other side of the wrestling stuff before you start training. So I learned how to book and announce and all that, commentate, all before I'd even started taking bumps. So it was definitely a different way to get into the business, and it's given me, I think, a good insight in the sense of that I can see both sides of the table. Right,
and that's going to paint how you view things as well from an in-ring perspective, I imagine. Because if you're doing things and thinking of the commentator's viewpoint or of the booker's viewpoint, it's gonna paint how you react in the ring as well, right?
I definitely think it definitely gives me a that view. And it's one of those things, like, a lot of people don't necessarily utilize commentators as well as they, I think, could, just to put over stories. Like, if there's something that I'll go to the commentators and I'll be like, hey, can you put this over? Can you put this over? This is what we're doing here. Can you talk about this? And I think it's a really good way just to convey that to a fan base without having to be super literal. You can just more work on the match, and commentators will get the story across just as easily as you will.
Yeah. See, that's something I think that we, in all of Australian wrestling, we have a bit of a commentary problem, to be honest with you. It's one of my biggest criticisms of the general scene is not strong enough commentary pretty much across the board. I think Melbourne City Wrestling may be the prime sort of example against what I'm saying. Like, they do really good commentary. I really enjoy their commentary team, but it just sort of...
I think Andy Coyne has a huge part to play in that, just obviously with his commentary experience in England and whatnot. He really brings that understanding of how to put the story and put over the story. Which, I agree with you. There are some good commentators out there, but there's some average commentators.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the commentators themselves, but I just feel like I don't know, the things that get focused on a lot and stuff. So I understand where you're coming from with that, but
that's what I more meant.
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, so you went from PWI though. I know you from PWSA primarily.
Yeah, so when I was with PWI, I met John Raddick and all those guys, Wham Bam Bellows, Ace Wilson, through PWI, and they said, come down. And so I went down, and they asked, because at the time I was still commentating and announcing, so they asked me to help out on their smaller shows, their Friday Night Fights, their Sunday Slams, because they were still running all those back then as well.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to help out with them, so I did that. And then when I started training and doing some more in-ring stuff, PWI closed down, and I fully went on board with PWSA. I got more into the wrestling side, where I was training under Raddick and Zach Sabbath and Mike Boomer, and that's when we got more of the in-ring stuff. And even when I started doing, I'd be commentating on Saturday shows, but I'd be wrestling on the Fridays and Sundays.
Nice.
So still announcing and commentating was a big part of my wrestling identity for a long time.
Right. And so when was this, like, year? So you started with PWI in what year?
In 2009. I started in 2009. Yeah, we ran out the first show in August 2009, and we closed in November of 2011. Right. So I'd already gone over probably the end of 2010. I'd started like helping out on both and working around and doing all that kind of stuff. My first ever match was March 19th, 2011. So
wow. So you're coming up,
about that.
Yeah, so you're coming up on close to 10 years in the business, and
7 or 8 years
wrestling.
A couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. Because so I come from Sydney, and so I haven't followed a lot of the Adelaide scene until recently when I moved down here a couple of years ago. And so it's still new to me finding out how long some of the guys down here have been doing it. Like, there's a real history in South Australia that doesn't get talked about.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. Like guys like Raddick and Kincaid and Tyler Daniels, these guys have been around 12, 15, 17 years. I know Jag's retired now, but he was going, I reckon, pushing 20 years. So there's some real guys. Havoc would be, I think, close to 20 years. And he's still going. He's as smooth as he ever was. So it's pretty crazy to think that some of these guys, Damien Slater's another one's been around, I think, 15 years.
Yeah.
That they've been around a long time. Like, South Australian wrestling probably would be one of the older consistent scenes. I mean, there was a good period where it kind of shut down and then rebuilt up. But there's some guys who've been wrestling for a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's even crazier to think about it because with PWSA, I mean, they were running weekly shows.
Yeah, for a good 5 years. I'd wrestled, I think for those 5 years, I think the minimum matches I had a year was like 80 to 90 matches was the minimum. And that was some of the great times, and just being able to just constantly wrestle. Like a lot of guys get into the business, and I would think that everyone gets in for the love of wrestling.
Yeah. And
being able to wrestle every week, sometimes multiple times a week, it was such a great time, and it was a great learning experience. I'd be able to do different things in my matches. I'd be able to try different things out, and I'd always be improving and working harder.
Yeah, it's super rare in Australia to have multiple shows in a month, right? Like for one promotion. So it's when I saw that with PWSA, I was like, that's such a unique business model. But unfortunately, they've had to scale back now with the loss of the venue.
Yeah, the 5 years was up, the lease came up, and it was just like, let's try something different. And I think that was why we could be in a position where we're in, is because we had that permanent venue. We didn't always have to hope that venues could fit our dates. We just had that venue. We could rock up, set up the chairs, put on a show, pack up the chairs, go home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so crazy. The weekly shows, man. So you've had thousands of matches at this point.
Oh, it's not quite 1,000. I think the last count was close to 700.
So
700 in almost 8 years is pretty. I did for a long time.
Yeah.
When I was coming up when I went to Japan in 2016, I went back and really looked at all my matches, but I stopped keeping count for a long time ago. Just so many. Yeah,
because you hear like Jericho says like you keep a list of everything. Like he has a list of everything he's ever done, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I know a few guys. I know a couple of guys in Melbourne who have like books where they've written every match they've ever done. I never got to that level, but there was for a good point where I was keeping track pretty regularly. I can still remember most, but then I'll have guys who are like, hey, you remember this match? I'm like, nah, don't remember it at all. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I hear that a lot as well, though. I hear that from other wrestlers as well, that, it's hard sometimes to remember everything that's happened because it just sort of all becomes one big painful blur.
Yeah, you more remember, obviously, you remember emotions and feelings and things that so you don't remember specific matches, but you'll remember an angle or you'll remember a crowd reaction, and it's just, yeah. So I can kind of piece together a lot of the programs I've done, and I can remember programs, but like individual matches and individual things, I'll blur.
Yeah. Well, see, I wanted to ask you about an individual match specifically, though. The barbed wire Lego thumbtacks.
Yes,
BLT.
that was a lot of fun.
How did that come about?
BLT came about in a concept that we have at PWSA, we have a show in May every year called Hardcore Mania, where we try and do a hardcore show and do different things. And a lot of the times it was table matches. And I think one year I did a barbed wire table match. And I thought, all right, well, this is kind of cool. And then I just want to do something different. And I love deathmatch wrestling. And I know it gets poo-pooed a lot by certain people and it looked at garbage wrestling. And some of it's bad, some of it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I am a big fan of it. And it's just something so different. And I always love that kind of stuff. And I thought, how can I kind of bring this to the PWSA fans who have, I would say generally a very early 90s kind of look at wrestling good versus bad. And I didn't want to go full, let's just throw light tubes out there. Let's kind of ease into it. Let's make it something. So I've always kind of used hardcore to emphasize the story, not to just let's just do hardcore for hardcore. So I had a big heel turn against a guy named Adam Crow, and he'd done a couple of Lego spots, and I thought, well, this could be a really cool concept. I don't think I've ever seen a match specifically announced as barbed wire Lego thumbtacks, and I definitely hadn't seen it in Australia.
Yeah.
So that we'll build this. We're all both cool, willing to do some crazy stuff. And then it wrote itself, let's market this, Australia's first barbed wire Lego thumbtacks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I know there was a Lego deathmatch over in Perth. I remember Felix Young and Hasluck.
Yeah, they did one. I know Hasluck, Michelle's done a fair bit of Lego stuff throughout the ages. I think there was another big one in Sydney as well. I think it was CWA possibly. I could be mistaken, but there was a big one over there. I believe ours came before the CWA one.
But yours was definitely the first to include the barbed wire, the tacks.
Yeah, and the barbed wire and the tacks as well. So it created extra elements and things that we can do instead of just building it around the Lego.
Which is worse on the body, the Lego or the tacks? That's what I've got to know.
The Lego. Definitely the Lego. It goes in the same as tacks and it bruises.
Yeah, because I remember when I was talking to Michelle Hasluck, she was telling me that the Lego, you don't realize how bad it's going to be. But it is, it's like you step on it and it hurts, right? And then
Yeah, it's pretty much that concept. Like I get hit with a big slam, and I'm like right in the beginning, and I'm just like, wow, that hurt way more than I expected. It winded me instantly, and it's just like, and then you get up, and it's just as you're getting up, your elbows go in it, and it's so bad.
Yeah, and you're like, sweet, 10 more minutes of this.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's crazy. So you've done a fair bit of hardcore stuff in your career though, as well.
Yeah, I've done a fair bit. I'd like to think of myself as a hardcore guy. I have no problems doing it. But once again, I'll do it for a reason. It won't just be like, oh, cool, I'm just gonna bust out light tubes this week.
Yeah.
Everything I've always done has always been motivated by a program or a story or a chapter in a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm happy to throw chairs, tacks, tables, barbed wire. I think the only things I haven't done are glass and fire, pretty sure.
Right. See, yeah, fire's interesting to me. Fire terrifies me.
Fire and glass are my two kind of... I always called them my hard nose, just because they're so unpredictable. But the more and more I see light tube spots, I'm just like, I really want to do light tube spots.
What about, they do like cinder blocks and syringes and stuff now too. Like, have you seen any of these?
Syringes, yeah. I have seen the syringes. The cinder blocks are interesting because they're controllable. As long as you're not like taking them really awkwardly, I think they'd be controllable. They'll hurt like hell. But I feel like I could walk, or at least be able to walk the next day. Syringes just... I don't like needles.
Yeah.
Being stabbed by syringes does not scream my kind of match, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's because I remember, Keegan did some stuff in America, and he was like, "I'll do a death match, but not cinder blocks or syringes." Like those are his hard no's, and I'm like, all of it's a hard no for me. I'm happy to just watch you guys do it. That's crazy. But you touched on it briefly before. 2016, did you say it was? You went over to Japan. So you've spent most of your career in PWSA, but you did a stint over in Japan.
Yeah, I went for 3 weeks. Went for a small tour. Worked some small little feds and whatnot. One really cool thing is on the last show, we worked this place. I can't remember what it was called. It was like SWF. Shinshu Wrestling Federation, I think, or something along those lines. But we're in the main event. It's a 6-man tag. So it's me, Bellows, and you might know the name Fugo.
No.
No, you don't know Fugo. Fugo's basically the go-to guy to get matches in Japan, unless you're going through, say, All Japan, Land's End, or New Japan. Fugo's the guy. It was, Chris Trance has always gone through him. A whole bunch of others. Gabriel Wolf, Mad Dog. They always end up working for Fugo. He's a great guy. Really funny bloke.
Right.
So it was us three, and we're wrestling the promoter, whose name is Great Moocher, and he has all of his gear is Kenji Muto rip-off gear, like merch, but with his mask on them. He wears like this apple mask because the apple is like the local grown thing.
Right.
And it was just like, wow, he is the Great Moocher. Like it was so funny just seeing all this, like all the bears and just with his mask on them. And then we wrestled Shiro Koshinaka, who was the first New Japan junior heavyweight champion, which was pretty cool. And then the other guy was the Great Kabuki, 67-year-old Great Kabuki, which was just wow.
Wow. That's insane. Like the amount of experience those guys have too.
Oh, and they were so cool and just so relaxed. And like Kabuki is ridiculously funny. Like he kept his English was really good from all the time he spent in the States. So he kept making jokes that I should like stiff the promoter and just beat him up. And it was just one of the things he was saying is like is like, I have bad ankles, bad knees, bad back, bad neck. So don't fucking touch me. And just the whole lot of him just popped. It was so funny.
Yeah. So that was one of my questions about Japan is how did you find the language barrier? Like,
language barrier is interesting. Like, I found that everyone kind of understands English, but whether or not they can talk to you back is probably going to be the hardest thing.
Right.
I remember once when me and Bellows were trying to find our accommodation, we spoke to one of the guys at the train station, and he could hear us and he could follow along with what we were saying, but he couldn't direct us. So that kind of became a bit of a language barrier on that end, but I did find that no matter where I really went, they could understand English enough to kind of follow along what I was saying. Whether or not they could help me back was in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Because, and I mean, I know when you get to the working stage, like everyone speaks wrestling, right? Like,
yeah,
no matter what
definitely.
country you go to,
I actually have
wrestling has its
a
own
really
sort of thing.
funny story about the language barrier. So on the first show we were there, we all prayed before the show, and it was just kind of, they're all speaking Japanese and they're all having a laugh, and me and Jay are just nodding along, just yeah, cool, this is awesome. And then we prayed, and then we did the show. And so the next show we did the next day, we did the show and everything. And then somebody comes into the locker room and says, after you change, pray bad meeting. I'm like, okay, that seems a bit odd, but we prayed at the last show. Bad meeting, I guess the show didn't go so well. It was a very small crowd. It was only like 12 people, but it was really intimate. It was done for this woman named Aki. Her training school put on like an exhibition show just for her trainees to get some matches, and they invited us along through Fugo, and we had a lot of fun. It was wrestled in like a martial arts venue, like a dojo, so it had like all that cushioned floor and stuff. So we're like, all right, this is kind of odd, like pray bad meeting. So we get changed and we go out there. It wasn't pray bad meeting, it was play badminton. We were going to play badminton against the fans that had rocked up.
Right.
And instead of a net, they had the two young girls, and they ran a chain between them. So we played badminton against the fans, and if we lost, we had to eat wasabi off of a biscuit.
Okay, that's so random.
It is. It was one of the most weirdest times, but it was so much fun, and I would never... It was one of those memories that will stick with me forever.
Yeah, that's very Japan.
Yeah,
playing
only
badminton
in Japan.
with fans for some reason. That's amazing. I love it. So, okay, but coming back to Australia, though, I hear that you were pretty involved in the training at PWSA as well for a while.
Yeah, I've done 2 major stints training through PWSA. I trained under Zach Sabbath, Mike Boomer, and Johnny Raddick, so I feel like I had a pretty good pedigree in who taught me and understanding. So the first time I took over, it was me and Jake Viper doing a lot of the stuff, and that's where we had guys like current PWSA champion Acid Hayes and Matt Hayter, and those guys came through at that point. And that was the first time around, but a lot of people don't tell you this, and that's why I have so much respect for guys like Carlo and stuff that can stick around training for so long. It's really, it burns you out very quickly because you get so emotionally invested in the guys you're teaching, and when they achieve, you achieve. But if you have certain guys that just aren't pulling their own weight or wasting potential, it really drags on you. So I had to step away from training for a little while. And then we had a new set of guys that came through, the Duke Marshalls, Tyler Odysseys, the current crop that we've got now. And I'm like, there's a couple of them that were traveling all the way from Ranella. And I'm just like, well, if they're going to travel for 2 hours, essentially, for training, I can travel 20 minutes from my place and give them some decent training. So I went in there, and it was, Joey Triton was helping out at the time, and Jonathan Corviday and a few other guys. Yeah, I love being able to pass on, and I love being able to talk wrestling, and being able to find people who will pay to listen to you talk wrestling is great.
Yeah, well, that's the dream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you find yourself getting emotionally invested in the careers of the
100%.
students?
Yeah, absolutely. Even, and just like, even not even so much the careers, just like, if, because obviously guys could get into wrestling, have watched wrestling, and then I think everyone's like visualized what they would like them as wrestlers, like what they would wear, what their moves would be. So everyone kind of comes in with an idea. Nobody comes in with I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens.
Yeah.
So whenever you'll see guys that will practice like 450s or RKOs, and they'll like work on it. And when they finally start hitting it cleanly and stuff, and that's great to see them light up.
Yeah.
You see how hard they've worked. And I've worked a lot of people's first matches, and so it's always good to see, all right, here you go, and then I'll work it down the track, and it's like it's always really good to see how people are progressing and working hard, and just that drive.
That's awesome. And it would motivate you too, right? To push further. Because wrestling's one of those things where you're always learning.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I always found when I was least motivated, I was when I got burnt out with the training the first time is probably one of the few times in wrestling where I've really been unmotivated. But coming back is really definitely one of the big pushes of where I'm at today and trying to get my name out there. It was just one of those, like, let's just do this. Like, this is so much fun. I'm loving wrestling again. I was doing that big Swords of Truth program with Acid Hayes at the time as well. So that's been great to really just essentially a kick in the ass to really push it with wrestling.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've done quite a few tag teams in your time.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as a tag team guy more than a singles guy. I do love a good singles match, but tag teams are just so much fun. You can do so much more. You can tell a great story. Yeah, I've had a few tag teams. Jake Viper, Jonathan Corvidae are the first two that really come to mind, but I've done some here, there, and everywhere. Teamed with basically, I think, everyone at some point.
Everyone in South Australia.
Probably at some point.
So it was you and Viper as Blunt Force Trauma, right?
Yeah, that was probably my biggest run as a tag team.
Best name. I love the name, Blunt Force Trauma.
It just so worked because he throws a whole bunch of knees and I throw clubs and chops. So it's just we're just gonna beat you down until you die. It just fit.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You've been branching out a lot though lately. So since you've, like you said, you got a little unmotivated, you got through it, and you're back and you're really pushing now. And I mean, you've been showing up in Adelaide Championship Wrestling. You've got Iron Fist coming up. You got even interstate, right? Is that a goal for you, like to sort of get out of the state and get all around the place?
Yeah, definitely. I turned 30 in October last year, and I was coming up to my 30th, and I'm just looking at it, I'm like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it now. I'm still dieting pretty strict, so I'm trying to lose weight. I feel like I was having good matches, and I was just like, why not? Like, let's just give it a shot. So I contacted a few guys I knew from in Melbourne, put the feelers out. APW were like, yep, come aboard. And it was actually October 13th, and my birthday's October 15th, so that worked out. It was like 2 days before my 30th birthday. I'm like, this is perfect. It's destiny. Like, it's going to line up. So I went down there and I wrestled Jason Crash, which was a great match. It's online. Pretty sure it's through the APW YouTube. It's a really fun match. And Jason Crash is ridiculously athletic for a guy of his size. He's like, I think 6'3", and he does flipping leg drops and it's just moonsaults to his feet. He's just an incredibly gifted athlete. And then
yeah.
I move pretty well for a big guy my size, so we were able to do some stuff that nobody was really expecting and just throwing bombs, and it was just real chemistry from the get-go. It was a great match, and from then it just kind of, I wouldn't say spiraled, but snowballed. You got like Iron Fist hit me up, and then it's just going and going. The more you get out there, the more people hitting you up. But I set a goal this year to debut for 5 companies by the end of the year, and I'll by this weekend I would have hit 2, so it's got 3 more out there.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's always setting goals, man. Always setting goals. That's a big thing. But you touched on the whole, you're a bigger guy. And I feel like there's a bit of a hole at the moment in Australian wrestling when it comes to big men, right? I feel like there's not a lot of big men around. I think there's a real role that you can fill there.
Yeah, I feel like that's true. Unfortunately, with the retirements of Mike Massive and Coyote, these guys were big guys, larger than life, and huge in the ring. Especially when you look. That's the joy of wrestling rings. Everyone's looking up, so you always look even bigger.
Yeah.
So then these are huge guys. They're tall. They're wide. Yeah, there's not a lot of those big guys. There's a few of us around. Like you got Crusher in Melbourne. You got Rip. I think his name's Rip Riley up in Queensland.
Rip Riley, yeah, Mr. Queensland Wrestling.
Yeah, he's a solid unit himself, and he moves really well for a guy of his size as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got probably the pinnacle of super heavyweights in the country, which is Gino Gambino. So.
Yeah, and you've got Gino this week, this Friday, in a couple of days. Like, as people listen to this, it's tonight.
Yeah, so it's tonight. Come down to the change of venue now at the ACW Academy in prospect.
Yeah, I saw that just before we went on the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, issues with the venue. I'm not sure what the goal is with there, but I've trained in that place. It's a real grungy kind of vibe. So
yeah.
I think it'll really benefit the show to have this underground feel.
Yeah, that's the thing that I thought. Like it's kind of the word I used was grimy. It's like it's really
grimy. Yeah,
yeah. I like it.
And get the lights on, get the heat in there, fill it with people, get the drinks flowing. It'll be a really fun time.
Yeah, but you're facing off, so your debut for Iron Fist Pro tonight, and you got Gino.
Yeah, it's a hell of a debut, isn't
it? Yeah. Like you said, like he's the super heavyweight, right? He's the champ. He's the biggest in the country.
Definitely, he's the current MCW champion. You can't really ask for a bigger representation of Australian wrestling. Member of the OG Bullet Club, and he's a big dude, and he moves well, and he hits hard, and that's exactly what heavy set violence is about. It's just big guys throwing bombs.
Yeah, I love a good big bopper match, man. So I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I've been keen since the announcement.
Well, that video too, was that all you? Was that just I'm gonna do a guess who video? Where did that come from?
I wish I could take credit for that, but it wasn't as much me as I really wish it was, because I would love to take entire credit. But I was brainstorming with Bateman, and we came up with the concept, and we're like, wow, this could really work. And then we had his mate Tim, who filmed it, and whose direction was brilliant, and had like a whole bunch of like really cool angles and reflections and stuff that didn't make it to the final edit. And then Digital Beard, the MCW photographer and video editing wizard, put it all together, and the final product was pretty great. I like to think that it's like my version of a spring break announcement.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I really like the way wrestling is going with these more cinematic. It's not a trailer. It's like an announcement for the match or whatever. But I guess it is kind of like a trailer, right?
It's something different. Like there's nothing wrong with you and me, we're going to wrestle on this date, come bring your A game, because it's still a great way to market. But if you're scrolling through your phone, it's not really going to catch your eye. Like my newsfeed, and your newsfeed probably is even worse with just promos.
Yeah.
You'll see them all the time. So having something like this one, or JK Moody's are always really great, because they start with like just something to catch your eye.
Yeah. Yeah, JK Moody's are really good. I like Rat Daddies a lot.
Rat Daddies are amazing. They're just something completely different. Even the last one he did, the birthday party, didn't promote anything. But I will 100% tell you, when he put on sandwiches by I think it's Grand Poobahs or whatever the band's called, popped me so hard. Popped me so bad. I loved it.
Yeah, I think having something to set you apart like that, like it works obviously. Like, look how over he is too. Like, if you ever go to a Rampage show, like, dude is over as hell. So it's working.
I went to my first one in ages. I went to the J-Rock farewell show.
Right. Yeah.
And just the pop he got when he entered, that was pretty huge. Like, I was quite blown away. A lot of credit goes to the Covenant and really just riling up that crowd. But he was the perfect foil to the bad guy Mike Boomer.
Yeah, the Rampage crowd are so interesting to me because they pop for the random, right? Like Sauce, Corn Dog, he got instantly over that night. Like, it was the first time he was doing that shtick in front of the Rampage crowd, and it got over huge immediately. And it's just the most random thing. Like, it's quite esoteric almost.
Yeah, it's very, I wouldn't say it's even different. It's just entertaining. Like, wrestling at its core is entertainment.
Yeah.
You go, no matter what you're doing, no matter the athletic competition, you're there to entertain. So when you see something, and repetition is the key to getting anything over. Like, the bottom line, you smell what the Rock is cooking. It's all repetition, and just having something that is so easy to chant, just Sauce, just over and over and over again. It was like everyone was having fun, and it was a warm night, so I'm pretty sure that everyone in that audience was probably either sweating or liquored up as hell. So they just wanted to have a good time.
Yeah, it was awesome. But I know the different crowds though in Adelaide. It always perplexes me because I feel like every promotion has a very different and loyal crowd, and there's not really much crossover.
Yeah, I have noticed that too. Like, especially like, I think most of it's come down to like SA companies building loyal fan bases.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and like, say, take Melbourne, for example, they have PCW and then almost everyone else, and they share talent. I mean, MCW has their own loyal fans that will only go to MCW shows, and I'm sure NAW and APW and Warzone, Underworld, all of them will have a few core fans that will only go to their shows, but a lot of their workers get spread out, where Adelaide doesn't really have that. There's Iron Fist, I think, is probably the only show this year that really has a lot of different workers coming together in those interpromotional matches. PWSA runs the Cole Devani. It's now the memorial show, but it used to be the tribute show, where we'll have all the other promotions come in. But that usually has not so much interpromotional, but has each promotion highlighting their workers and their stuff.
Right.
This is the
like
crowd.
a super
They
show.
built it from super show. And these crowds, these fan bases, these promotions, they've built such loyal, so they can travel. Like Wrestle Rampage, for example. When I was going as a fan, they were down at the Cavelli Park, and then they've gone to St. Clair, and now they're over in Port Adelaide, and they just travel with them. It's not so much a locality thing. They just go with them, and Riot City's done a very similar thing where they've gone from place to place. They go from one week they're at HQ, the next they're back at their base, their training facility, and then they're at I think it's the Wayville, the Latvian Center in Wayville.
Yeah, Latvian Hall.
Yeah, Latvian Hall, that's the one. And these fans will just travel. One of the biggest things that PWSA was worried about is when we moved out of Paraka, we go, will our fans travel? I mean, Modbury's only like 10 minutes up the road, if that. But it's been great to see we still have that really loyal fan base, and ACW has theirs. They had a huge turnout at the Estonian Hall, and so it's really cool to see like these real core fans of each promotion being so loyal.
Yeah, it's crazy because like I said, like I'll go to a Riot City show and I'll go to an ACW show, and you see there's like maybe 20, 30 people that sort of cross over that go to like all the different shows. And it's really
they're just like real hardcore fans.
Yeah, but then the other hundreds of people, completely different faces, and it's like I love what Iron Fist are doing, like trying to capitalize on that and trying to be like, well, let's bring everyone together and see what happens. And I hope it pays off. Politically, I feel like it was probably a bit of a feat because I don't know what the story is. I'm not behind the curtain, but it looks like, I mean, you touched on it. The guys stay in their home promotion. They don't really work anywhere else within the state.
Yeah, I reckon the Iron Fist and the guys over there probably would have had their hands full in terms of cross-promotional politics. But it's got some pretty great matches out there, like Rat Daddy versus everyone's dad, Matt Hayter, is going to be something special.
Yes.
Two really charismatic young guys willing to prove everything. Like that's a match waiting to happen. And then you got the Velocities versus the Prayer for the tag belts. Like that's going to be just crazy high-flying fun.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. I'm really looking forward to it. But that's not all you've got coming up, right? You've got Adelaide Championship Wrestling is next week?
No, Adelaide Championship Wrestling's the 30th, so I think it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks away, right.
2 weeks from Saturday. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing there yet, but I'm bringing the violence. If they've got a match for me, they've got anybody. Send out Cruiser, Handy, Mundy. I'll take them all on.
Yeah, well, the match that I'm looking forward to, but I feel like it's something that we'd have to build to, would be yourself versus Ace Wilson, who has also shown up recently in ACW, and like I said, I'm a fan of the Big Bopper matches. So
yeah, me and Ace have squared up a few times. He chops just as hard as I do, and he's willing to throw him. So
it's terrifying.
I love working Ace. He's such a great mind. He's such a studier of wrestling, and he's student of the game, and he knows how to pick apart anybody. And those chops hurt, I'll tell you. He probably has the hardest chops I've ever felt in wrestling. So
yeah, that doesn't surprise me from seeing them up close at the show, because the ACW venue, when they run their academy shows, the Evolve shows, it's very intimate. It's like you're right up there, and those chops are loud as hell. Some of the loudest I've ever heard.
Yeah, his chops are insane.
Yeah.
And some days I feel like I'm trying to match his. Like, I don't think I've ever thrown better, but I'm just trying to match.
Trying to get to that level, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've also you're heading back to Adrenaline Pro though.
Yeah, I got Adrenaline Pro next weekend. Me versus Zane Zodiac. Funny little story about Zane Zodiac. On the first show I was over there, the one back in October. After the match, he stormed the ring and kicked me in the face to prevent me from beating down his brother anymore. So it's been 6 months in the build, but I'm finally going to beat his head in.
Nice. So people in Melbourne want to get down to Adrenaline Pro Wrestling next week, and tonight, of course, you're at Iron Fist Pro here in Adelaide. So for people who want to follow you and keep up to date on where you are, where you're going to be, because we want to see you hit all 5 of those companies. For people who want to book you, what's your contact details? Where can they find you on social media?
I'm on Facebook and I'm now on Twitter. I finally got myself a Twitter, both at the THEVLW for Twitter. Facebook is just Michael Weaver Pro Wrestler, and my Instagram is the same as my Twitter. My Instagram is more of a personal one, but I'm happy if fans want to. It's basically just pictures of my dog. So you just want to jump on board and see random sunrises at 6:30 in the morning as I'm heading to work, and pictures of my pug. Go for it.
That's what Instagram's for, right? Pictures of dogs and gym selfies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. So you jump on board. And always just send me a shout out. Tell me where you've seen me from. Favorite match. Always love to hear the fan support.
Yeah, awesome. All right, thanks a lot for coming on the show, man. Especially at late notice. Like, I really appreciate it.
No, that's no problems, man. Thanks for having me.
So there you have it. Heavyset Violence, Michael Weaver. Thank you so much for coming on at the last minute, brother. I really appreciate it. Made me look like a professional because I had someone to interview, so I really, really appreciate that a lot. If you want to hear other professionals do what they do and interview Aussie grapplers and grappler adjacent people, here are the places you can do it. Steph DeLander and Edward Dusk both stopped by our friends on the turnbuckle in the studio there. I don't know if they were both in the studio. I haven't had a chance to listen yet, to be completely honest with you. Today has been a day. But Steph DeLander, someone who, if you listen to the podcast here, I believe is setting the world on fire at the moment since coming back from her injury and unmasking. She can do no wrong, and I'm really enjoying watching her progression. Edward Dusk stops by as well to talk about PCW Grand Slam, which is coming up this weekend, which you'll hear about in just a moment in what's happening near you. So make sure you open your podcast player, whatever app you're listening to this on, scroll down to the show notes, and click that link to go listen to On the Turnbuckle. They do good work over there. I'm a big fan of their show. Also, over on Talking Stick, the J-Stick, JXT. I always do that wrong. I feel like my cadence is off. I just can't get the... Anyway, the J-Stick JXT talks to Steve Valek about his career. And then on Wrestle Radio Australia this week, Tree Hugger Lucci, one of the most underrated guys in the country. Someone I'm a big fan of, Tree Hugger Lucci. Really looking forward to hearing that one on Wrestle Radio Australia as well. But now, let's take a look at what's happening this weekend in Aussie Grapps. Over in New Zealand. Sounds weird saying that. This weekend in Aussie Grapps. Should I call it Anne's Grapps? I don't even know. Over in New Zealand, SPW present Queenstown WrestleFest in Queenstown. Willpower takes on Control. Falcon Kid goes one-on-one with Shane Sinclair. Hammer and T-Rex face off. Kingy and Wanna Fight will challenge Detention for their New Zealand Tag Team Championships, and the hooligan Marcus Kool puts his career on the line for another shot against Kane Khan and the New Zealand Heavyweight Championship. He has a lot to prove. He's in his hometown. He wants to prove that he can still hang at that level. You got to give it to Marcus Kool, right? He's not going to retire, surely. Please don't retire. I'm really enjoying watching your work. But that one, of course, over in New Zealand, over in Western Australia, EPW School of Pro Wrestling presents Showcase number 2, front of the line at the EPW School of Pro Wrestling in Perth. Generation Zero, the Don Michael Molione and Scotty Ryan take on the Headhunters, Dan Steele and Twitch. Lord Jonathan Wimbledon takes on Bruno Nitro. Block A Rising Star Cup quarterfinal between Stella Nix and Jack Edwards is scheduled to take place. Ricky Quack. I'm not sure. Richie Quatch. Ricky Quack. Someone drew the short straw for their debut match going up against the real wrestler, EPW champion Gavin McGavin. Gavin McGavin is going to wipe the floor with the guy whose name I can't pronounce or read. It's getting late here, guys. It's getting late and I apologize. Del Cano teams with Ryan Allen against Tyler Jacobs and Chadwick Jackson in the tag team action. For this one, tickets are just $10. Definitely worth a watch. The Vimeo release, I didn't even realize that these school shows were going to go up on Vimeo, and the Vimeo release of the last one was really quick. I'm looking forward to this one. The first show was really good. I'm hoping the second show is going to be just as good, and with specifically looking forward to Stella Nix and Jack Edwards. I think that's going to be an amazing match. Then on Saturday, New Horizons Pro Wrestling presents Slaughterhouse 31 at the New Horizon Pro Wrestling Slaughterhouse. The Australian Gothic Heritor takes on Jebediah. Jono Petreski and Cannon Connors go one-on-one. Rogan Kargui faces off against Kaniki Wheeler, and much, much more. Tickets are just $5 for that one. In South Australia, my home state, Iron Fist Pro take over the ACW Academy for the Way of the Fist. Michael Weaver takes on Gino Gambino in a battle of the big boys. Royce Chambers and Andy Faust will take on James Cruiser and Joe Mundy. Zach Sabbath takes on Shaukat all the way from Malaysia Pro Wrestling. I am super excited for that. Rat Daddy and Matt Hayter are going to go one-on-one in a Daddy vs. Daddy match. Tommy Knight takes on Robbie Hart. The Street Gang Hooligans, the Pareya, and the Velocities face off over the Twin Dragon Championships. And of course, Robbie Eagles goes one-on-one with J.K. Moody. Tickets for this one start at $25. I've actually just found out, just before I recorded, that I'm not going to be able to make it to this one. Life issues, babysitters, rent doubling, all that sort of stuff has sort of converged on this one moment in my life where I really wanted to go to Iron Fist Pro. I'd told Aiden that I'd run the Twitter for him and keep people updated on what was happening. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. So people, please get out and support Iron Fist Pro Wrestling. Get out and support local Grapps. I really like their mission of sort of shining light on unseen talent and bringing the best from all of Australia around, and no matter what promotion they work for, booking the best of the best. I'm really looking forward to this show. Hopefully it makes it on demand because I really want to see it, and I'm really bummed out that I'm not going to make it. So guys, go for me, buy some merch, and have a good time. Then on Saturday, it is March Madness with PWSA at the Karadinga Sports Centre. Acid Hayes and Lil Onyx face off over the PWSA heavyweight title in a submission match. Colossus and Scorn are set to battle over the Adelaide Open Championship. Blunt Force Trauma return, and much, much more. Tickets start at $15. Up in New South Wales, Saturday Night Suplex Wrestling present Chapter 8, Now It's Full, at the East Cessnock Bowling Club. The Sapa Inca takes on Jaden Jacobs, Jackson Spade, and Johnny Vassetti face off, and the tag titles are on the line when Rotten defend against Nate Carlo and Alex Irvine. Lynx Lewis defends the Junior Heavyweight Championship against Jake Wilder, and Jack Payne puts his Suplex Heavyweight Championship on the line in a match with Roswell. All this and much more. Tickets start at $13. In Queensland, AWA Grindhouse Hold My Beer takes place at the Zoo on Saturday night. The Zoo, the nightclub, not the Zoo, the Zoo. Tim Cade and Jesse Daniels will take part in a grudge match over the #1 contendership. The Good Men, John Skyfall and Sebastian Matters, take on the Retro Bros, Bobby Bishop and Rip Riley, in a tag team tequila death match. Man, that sounds cool. Divine Darkness face Headstrong for the AWA Tag Team titles, and Showtime Jake Nova defends the AWA Heavyweight Championship against Alex Shepard. In Victoria, two huge events going head-to-head, both with huge audience, just showing how strong Australian wrestling can be. PCW Grand Slam pre-sold over 1,000 tickets as of last week. We talked about it already. It takes place this Saturday night at the State Basketball Center. Daniel Swagger and Nate Cross face off in a street fight. Tricky and Cass Stone go one-on-one in a submission match. RB4K, Sammy Falcon, Ryan Rapid, and Aisha have a Freebird rules match with the Brotherhood, Wake, Sid Parker, and Erica Reed for the tag team titles. Edward Dusk and Danny Psycho look to settle the score, and in the main event, the national championship is on the line when Lucas Daniels faces off against Mark Cage. You don't want to miss this one. Tickets are just $20. Meanwhile, at the Thornbury Theatre, MCW present Clash of the Titans, and what a card we're looking at here. Robbie Eagles goes one-on-one against an old foe in Richie Taylor. J.K. Moody takes on the debuting Taylor King. Jet and Tyson look to get a mark in the winners column against Helter Skelter. Funtime Phil is fighting for Aria's MCW career in a one-on-one match with Loverboy Lockie Hendricks as a part of the Lockie Hendricks Farewell Tour. Mike Burr and DCT settle their differences in one-on-one action. The Law and the Brat Pack clash over the tag team titles in a tables, ladders, and chairs match. And of course, the big one, Slex and Gino Gambino, Inter-Commonwealth Champion versus MCW World Champion. Winner takes all. No DQ, there must be a winner. It's going to be a big one in Melbourne this weekend. Remaining tickets for Clash of the Titans are $30. And that's what it's about, guys. Get out and support the local Grapps. I'm really bummed out that I'm not able to do it this weekend, but get out there for me. Go to a local wrestling show. Buy a t-shirt for yourself, not for me. Buy a t-shirt for yourself. If you do want to help me get out to local wrestling shows more and more often so that I can cover as much of this stuff for you as I can, the best place to support us, of course, checking out our sponsors always helps. But if you want to go and support us directly, that happens at patreon.com/theb+. And it's not going to be for nothing. You're not just throwing money away. We're going to give you some awesome rewards, ad-free episodes, custom episodes, early access to bonus episodes, lots of really fun stuff on the Discord. So head over to patreon.com/theb+ if you want to help me get out to shows and help this whole thing grow. It's not just me. There's a bunch of other guys that do the B+ with me, and we're, looking at ways that we can grow and ways that we can make this bigger and better and that we can get Aussie Grapps out there for the world. So if you want to get in on our mission of watch global, support local, that is the place to do it. You can, if you want to message me, if you want to shoot me a message and have a chat about wrestling, about Aussie wrestling, about anything really, if you need someone to talk to, I am there, at Greg Unchained on Twitter, at The Greg Unchained on Instagram. We collectively are the B+ Wrestle on Twitter, because wrestling wouldn't fit. The B+ Wrestling everywhere else. Like, share, subscribe, 5-star review if you like what we do, and thank you, as always, so much for listening.
Hold one! Arm drag!
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list!
Sorry, no speak English.
Dummy! Goodbye and good night! Hold two! Arm bar!
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
It's still real to me, damn it! Dummy! Hold three! The moss covered! Three-handle family grudungle!